In the middle of the night while everybody was sleeping or up partying, given the fact that it was the weekend when this went by, the United States, or rather the House of Representatives, okay, representing who exactly? Not the United States anymore, approved $61 billion in aid for Ukraine. Oh, great. We get to stand with Ukraine for another, how long does $61 billion last over there? I'm sure we'll be hearing about another update in a couple months' time because Zelensky, we know how quickly he pours through money. But in the grand scheme of things, is this going to help Ukraine? Is this the 11 digits needed to finally stick it to the Russia man and just show the world how bad he is? No, man, this is just going to result in more Ukrainian men being put through the meat grinder and a bunch more people dying. That's it. That's all this is intended for, and that's all this is going to do. The military-industrial complex must continue, must churn more of your taxpayer dollars. And it also shows you that the support like this, it's not even support in so much as money laundering, is going to continue for a lot longer. The fact that it's only being reported, and a lot of people are taking umbrage with the fact that $61 billion of this is going to Ukraine, and here was the House of Representatives after the vote was taking place, everybody waving their "We Stand with Ukraine" flags, making me sick to my stomach, when in reality it was $95 billion in foreign aid for Ukraine. Oh, right. And we don't need to mention the two other benefactors of this, mostly because the second country on that list, Taiwan, is getting their beaks wet right now for the moment that either one of those wars eventually comes to a swift conclusion. You can go ahead and, heat up what's going on in the Indo-Pacific. We'll break it down just a little bit further. And it's so funny. It's so funny. I released a video not that long ago about Rob Schneider finding out that the Republican Party is kind of a hack show and it's not real opposition. Really strange timing that the Republicans would go ahead in a bipartisan effort to drop one of the most unpopular bills in the middle of the night. Just strange timing on that one to go ahead and vindicate my opinions on that. U.S. House of Representatives on Saturday with broad bipartisan support. So yeah, there you go. Good opposition that we have right there when it comes to your taxpayer dollars. But if they want to quibble on all of the fringe issues, okay, if they want to go up there and they want to stand and simp for women, oh, what is a woman? Oh, look at that. Oh, the Supreme Court justice that we're just going to go ahead and vote for anyways can't even define what a woman is. Boy, imagine if it was the other way around. This is why I despise the GOP establishment. They're worse. They're worse than the Democrats because you can go ahead. You can set your watch by how hypocritical, how stupid, how far left most Democrats are going to be in today's day and age. But when it comes to the Republicans, every once in a while, they'll get something right. Some of them will come back around, even though they might completely and totally stand with Ukraine. And then a couple of months later go, why are we sending so much money over there? Gee, if you would have just, I don't know, engaged with some critical thinking from the outset, you wouldn't have had to come to this devastating revelation a few months later. It's getting to a point where I'm just tired of saying better late than never. There's Thomas Massey and there's everybody else in the House. And to all of those idiots, and we'll get to some of them that were saying that, Mike Johnson, he votes so strongly conservative. For all you idiots right now. You don't want to make your voices known, do ya? Yeah, Saturday with broad bipartisan support passed a $95 billion legislative package providing security assistance to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan over bitter objections from Republican hardliners. Republican hardliners like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's it. Good ones that are in there. The actual opposition. Legislation now proceeds to the Democratic majority Senate, which passed a similar measure more than 2 months ago. Similar measure 2 months ago, billions of your dollars being sent over there. Fantastic. As U.S. leaders from Democratic President Joe Biden to top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell, what's the difference, had been urging embattled Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson to bring it up to a vote, and he was more than willing to do as much. The Senate is set to begin considering the House passed bill on Tuesday. I'd imagine it'll be approved by the end of the week. Don't think that this is going to take very long, with some preliminary votes that afternoon. Okay, cool. So it's probably going to be done by Tuesday. Big shock. Final passage was expected sometime next week, which would clear the way for Biden to sign it into law. Exactly. The bill provides $60.84 billion for Ukraine, 23 on top of the yearly stipend Israel already gets to begin with. Oh, I'm sorry. That's just simply for weapons, stocks, and facilities. 26. You don't want to shortchange our greatest ally, of course, so they get an additional $3 billion over the top of that for a lovely $26 billion installment and $9.1 billion in humanitarian needs. When it comes to the IDF, that's just more missiles to go ahead and bomb the humanitarian relief going into Gaza, and $8.12 billion for the Indo-Pacific, including Taiwan. So just going ahead and a blanket covering the area in case they need to poke the Chinese bear for a second. Good thing that China is so generally incompetent that they aren't going to be waging a war anytime soon. Just be happy. For as much derision, as much hatred as you might have for a U.S. elected official, just take solace that, with a couple of exceptions, the rest of the world's leaders are even more incompetent than the American ones. It's mind-boggling to think about. Yes, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky expressed his thanks by playing a little ditty on the piano. Don't really know what he was playing it with, but he was, just spinning a good tune. Saying U.S. lawmakers move to keep history on the right track. 2+ years into this. 2+ years into this, and we're moving things towards the right track. Go to hell, because that's where you're sending all of your citizenry. Bastard. The vital U.S. aid bill passed today in the House and will keep the war from expanding. Save thousands and thousands of lives. No, it won't. This is going to do the exact opposite to that. Just sending out more people to die instead of negotiating peace. You absolute brainlet. And as for Israel, well, the less said about that, the better. Mostly because, hey, it's, the rare situation where Tim Pool has a salient point. Our support for Israel is done in the United States. Yep, it's generational. In 20 to 40 years, it will be over. Between anti-intervention, which is where I'm at, and anti-Israel, certain issues, quite a few issues actually, the next generation support for Israel is low. Hopefully it won't take that long. Yeah. Exactly. Hopefully it won't, but it's gonna depend on a lot of the talking heads at the top, which kind of led us to the situation to begin with, where our greatest ally became entrenched in our foreign affairs. I'm linking Canada in with this one because, wherever the United States goes, the rest of the Western world follows. Those exact same sentiments. Just because it's the United States today sending over money doesn't mean that the UK or Canada isn't going to be sending over more in the very near future. It's not going to be that same lofty number, but it's going to be pretty disgusting regardless. The talking heads at the top, okay? The guys that were out there, unironically saying, I'm a conservative, and that Mike Johnson guy, he's a good fighter that's out there, and Jack Posobiec putting it first and foremost. Like, for all of the people, for the people that I'm going to deride on this one, and Jack Posobiec, okay, for a very different reason, I'm going to go ahead and, lay into, he was always against Mike Johnson, okay? Let's make that very clear. But when it comes to his other sympathies, okay, you have to respect what Jeremy Boring and the Daily Wire crew have built. Do you really? Do you really? Especially when it comes to their latest statement. And oh my God, Jeremy, can't you just keep your comedy? Can't you just keep your jokes to your unfunny movies? People who deny the moon landing or suggest America is evil for its use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, or who say that George Bush is behind 9/11 actually hate this country. This is going everywhere. And as you can see, it's getting pretty heavily ratioed, and good friend of mine down there is pointing out of very important, very salient rebuttals. It was necessary to nuke civilians twice of a nation that had been offering to surrender for 4.5 months, and you ended up in the exact same terms they offered, which protected the emperor. Well, yeah, come on, Ryan, come on. Expect a neocon to know anything about history? Come on. But yeah, to just rebut over the top of that, we went to the moon. Exactly. Nuking cities was wrong and unnecessary, and 9/11, well, if we want to talk about 9/11, there's nobody on Earth better suited to do that than Mr. Dawson. So yeah, was George Bush behind 9/11? No. Is he complicit? There's a reason one of the big orchestrators behind a certain event was nicknamed Bandar Bush, but we'll just leave it at that. What about Jake Shields? What about Jake Shields dunking on Jeremy Boring? Boring of the Daily Wire believes that the jab is the greatest scientific achievement of our lifetimes. This is your conservative media, and that's why I'm always going to take the opportunity to call out Fox News with a better internet connection. The Daily Wire, the fastest-growing conservative online outlet, they're terrible, but they have the biggest megaphone. You have Matt Walsh discovering, the prophet of video games finally discovering that, hey, there's a problem over there with the leftist infiltration. Oh, thanks, pal. Or what about this atrocious stance that they were trying to kill their entire brand over the top of? How was saying Christ is king anti-Semitic? Well, let me tell you, it says in the Torah. This is your quote-unquote alternative. If you don't want to turn on your cable box to check in with the exact same talking points, you can get them online with a couple of ads sprinkled in. And by a couple, I mean within the first few minutes, you'll be getting a couple. They're grifters, man. They're hardcore grifters, and they get the front page. They're the ones that are telling you that Mike Johnson, oh, he's going to be the change that you want to see, even though we really shouldn't be changing away from Kevin McCarthy because he's a really good man and a very good conservative. They're the ones fighting these needless battles in the culture war, thinking that they're representative of the masses. What is a woman? It's very easy to define, but if you ever got an answer, your grift would end. Political news right now, like Trump's on trial, but I don't know, until the trial really starts kicking into high gear, I don't know how long it's set for, but it's probably going to be a couple of weeks, because of course it's going to be a couple of weeks. Not until about the fall is things really going to start to kick, around the time of the DNC and the RNC convening. Things aren't really going to start to get insane, and when they do, it's going to get insane. But it's important to figure out who are going to be the ops and who are going to be on your side in this upcoming election cycle. Because there's a pretty obvious, pretty dire situation. It will either be enacted or be averted this November. I don't want to get too hyperbolic, but if you thought 2020 was insane, if you thought 2020 was important, yeah, it ain't got nothing on this, okay? There's going to be quite a few October surprises that are probably going to play out a few months before October. There's going to be a lot of people hopping in on this. You can find my track record now, okay? I was talking about this stuff, and I've been consistent on this stuff as far back as 2020 online, and even further before that. I'm no Johnny-come-lately, no, the left me situation. I've been conservative since day one. I ain't here to make no money off of this stuff. I'm just here to tell the truth. And as far as I can tell, the Daily Wire, they aren't here to help you out. They're here to make a buck off of you, to try to fit you into an ideological prison. And if you don't go willingly, they're going to try to shame you into that cell. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm tired of generations being lost to this type of self-suppression and ideological purity. The change in the world that you want to see, and cancel your Daily Wire subscription. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.